Hi, and welcome back to Get It in the Ground. Today I want to cover two topics: eggplants, growing eggplants, as well as stack growing. What I mean by stack growing is on the bottom here, I have eggplants growing. Beautiful eggplants coming up everywhere along this fenced wall that I temporarily put up. Temporarily, permanent. I put it up pretty much mid-summer. I had some eggplants that I pulled out of the greenhouse. They just weren't doing well. I think it had to do with just the pollination part. I was able to pull those eggplants out, trying to preserve the root, and I replanted them in here, and they are just doing fantastic. They are putting out tons of beautiful eggplant, and we're already pushing, we're already into October in New Jersey. So we've had a very warm, wet September, and things are just really popping. So a quick note, these went in pretty much, like I said, midsummer, maybe around August, and here we go, October. I'm still getting this beautiful flush eggplants everywhere. And so that goes to show you, if you are, you got a late start. I see, like, when you go to the big box brands, you're out, everything's popping right around like May, June, everything's coming out, and then suddenly it all dwindles down and there's really nothing left. But that doesn't mean that the growing season, depending on where you are, is over. I plant stuff, I continue to plant stuff all the way into, depending on the crop. But tomatoes are and eggplants are normally a warm weather crop, but you could still plant them midsummer. Sure, maybe with tomatoes you're not going to get as many tomatoes, but eggplants do very well as long as you started the seed. If you grew from seed early and it has somewhat of an established root system and you put it in some really good soil, it will pop. And in October, even November, until you hit that first frost, you can still get eggplant. So just real quick, for eggplant, again, coming from a culinary background and just growing and loving eggplants in general, I just wanted to just kind of point out the perfect time to plant, to pick eggplants. Now, these are a smaller eggplant, but nevertheless, I like to pick them, especially if you have a lot of them, is pick them when they're smaller, right? So you have these little ones back here. They're doing great, and the key is to pick them when if you go up to your eggplant and just give it a little squeeze. If it gives a little bit, it's ready. Now but you could still, an eggplant, once it comes to this phase and it's dark, it's soft, you could still, just gonna grab this off of here. It's a nice little one. I'll eat it up later. It's just a little eggplant, but this is ready to eat. It's very tender and it's very good. These are actually my favorite eggplants to eat, is when they actually are smaller. They're tender, and number one is they don't have a lot of seeds in them. In fact, pretty much no seeds. So it's almost all eggplant. Whereas something big, like this, is still not gonna have many seeds. This is gonna start to have more seeds. Now again, there is a particular eggplant which is called Black Beauties. They do get bigger. But as they get bigger, they become a little bit tougher, and there's a lot of seeds. So if you're just growing your own eggplant, just pick them young, and the plant will continue to grow. The eggplant is actually a perennial plant in the right climate. Obviously, in New Jersey during the winter, it's going to die out. First frost, it's done. But if you keep it inside of a greenhouse, you could actually overwinter it, as well as with peppers and other vegetables. You could overwinter them in the greenhouse and bring them back out. And that's pretty much what I did. This plant alone, I think, got to be about 7 months old. I started it very early, probably back in March, rings a bell, from seed. And it really had a tough time in the greenhouse, and then I transferred it. So here we are in October, a flush of eggplant, and I got a bunch of eggplant probably for the next month and a half. And I probably might actually dig this up, put it in the greenhouse, and if I get 1 or 2 during the winter in the greenhouse, great. It's fresh, organic eggplant in the middle of winter, and you can't beat that. So the last thing I want to cover is stack growing. So what is stack growing? So I have eggplants up against here. Back there I have tomatoes, vine tomatoes. Here is chicken wire. Now, chicken wire is great because it gives the eggplant, it gives the tomatoes a place to pretty much grasp onto as they grow. Now, with tomatoes and eggplant, sometimes I didn't need to do with this because the eggplant actually kind of are coming in between. And tomato plants could also do the same thing, but I tie the eggplants to the fence. So as they grow, I bring a string over, and they come up, they come up, come up. It's very important, especially with tomatoes, you keep them off the ground. They could pick up diseases and they'll be done before you know it. Now, for this particular stack growing, what I have growing here is peas. And you can see this little shoot right here. I'll try to bring it down. Little shoot right here are peas. I believe this variety is a snap pea. Now, I started these mid-August, I believe, and they're already close to 6 feet tall. And right here, beautiful little snap pea. All right, crunchy, organic. I'm not even giving much attention to this particular area that they're all growing in, because I just know that there's a lot of activity. There's a lot. It's very good soil. It has a lot of biochar in it. It has a lot of ash from my wood stove, and it's obviously doing very well, even in the midst of a lot of weeds. I just haven't been able to get out here. But in a perfect world, there'd be no weeds around here. But they're still growing fantastic. Peas are actually a nitrogen fixer, so you don't need as much nitrogen in the ground in order for them to grow. Nitrogen fixing means that they pull nitrogen out of the air, and it helps them grow. What they really need more than anything is a lot of water. I do have a drip line that runs up against here. We had a very, like I said, we had a very a very wet winter. A wet September, and that just gave a lot of just good quality waterings day in and day out. So the benefits, obviously the benefits to stack growing. So I have eggplants here, I have peas above it. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, utilize up. If you have a small space, utilize what you got, right? So if you have a small strip that you're putting your garden in, grow up, right? Grow it up, right? Just put this, it's very simple. I got some wood that it was secondhand wood. I slapped them into the ground and just stapled and nailed a chicken wire to it, and ran the drip line up against it, and just started planting. In front of here, I have some peppers. And again, you could just mix all that stuff up. Try to keep the weeds out from the base. That's definitely recommended. And as long as your soil is viable and has a lot of activity in the beginning, you don't need to add that many inputs. What I would recommend throughout wherever you're going to plan on growing it, if you have access to wood chips, get the wood chips in there, and they'll really help the keeping the moisture in, as well as feeding the plants as they break down. Worms will come in, and it's just going to help the overall plant. So yeah, so the takeaway, grow up, right? If you have a small plot, even this, I have plenty of land here to grow, but you know, it's sometimes you just want to keep everything a little bit more condensed, so you're not out you know, just out walking around and just having to, everything's just condensed. So even as much land as I have, I still use this method of just growing up, especially if you have a small plot. Put in something, chicken wire, put your plants in, grow things like peas and beans and anything on a vine. They could go up as your eggplants and your tomatoes. And tomatoes actually are vines, but you could put bush tomatoes go really well next to this. You just tie them up. They have plenty of support. But everything that just is a vine, just plant that in between. It'll come up. So therefore, you got your eggplant, you got beans growing here, and whatever else is really on a bean or on a vine. And there's lots of vines, particular vines, vegetables, and whatnot. Even cucumbers, right? So you could have cucumbers coming up here. You could have peas coming up here. You could probably have 3 to 4 different vegetables in this one area, just thriving and just feeding you nonstop. So that's all I got. Like I said, get it in the ground, and I'll see you on the next one.